In what ways should organizations rethink data quality metrics to establish this immutable trust in ESG reporting?
So it's a very unique data problem because it's the first time that enterprises are challenged with the idea that they need to be able to provide data. That data has to be accessed by multiple stakeholders. And it's super important that we know the authenticity of it. We're living at a point of time where there are some absolutely foundationally groundbreaking technologies that are becoming available for enterprises to transform at the same time.
Talking about the future, where do you see the next frontier?
Eventually, what we're going to see is...
Hi, I'm Dr. Lorena Nessi from CCN, and today I'm joined by Clare Adelgren, Global Head of Blockchain Sales and Operations at EY. We'll talk about EY's work in blockchain and smart contracts, why institutions are entering DeFi despite security risks, and the challenges of managing interoperability, privacy, and decentralization. Clare, thanks for joining us. Welcome to CCN.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to start with what do you do at EY? What's the main mission of the company?
Yeah, well, I mean, we started our journey in blockchain 10 years ago. So we're just coming up to our 10th anniversary, which is, for many, many people, that number is like, wow, like really? It's so long already. 10 years in tech is a long time. We do many different things. In EY, we're one of the largest accounting companies in the world. And so we offer a tremendous amount of services within this space, as you would expect. So you would expect that we absolutely are very busy in the audit space, doing financial statement audits and helping our clients in that space, both with advisory work, preparation work. We do a tremendous amount of tax services. And we have an extremely large consulting service line, which, can be very varied work, everything from strategy all the way through to implementations and building solutions for clients. But we're a little bit different than the other services providers because we also have invested in building out product, because we've kind of believed all the way since the beginning that it's incredibly important for enterprises to be able to really embrace the value proposition of decentralized technology. Then they need to have products available for them to use in a very consumable way on a public blockchain. And so we've invested very heavily in building out our products and solutions, and we can talk a little bit about that later. And we can also talk a little bit about privacy and our R&D team, because there's a lot of work, and there has been a lot of work done to really think about how enterprises will use a public blockchain.
Absolutely.
My role is exciting because I get to work globally. I take care of all of the operations around our business, and also the sales enablement and helping our teams to succeed in being able to help our clients.
Brilliant. And we know that DeFi is growing, right? Even though exploit losses continue. And why do you think institutions are still willing to step into this space?
Yeah, I mean, the long and short of it is that it's a very compelling value proposition. It's offering a solution to a problem that we've, not been able to solve through other means. It provides you with rails that are 24 hours a day on, instant payments. I mean, everyone that's worked in financial services knows how long we've had that debate about instant and near instant payments. But this is a very real value proposition. And so, yes, I think that people are buying into it. I think that you see a gradual momentum, the maturing of the technology, which is actually really normal for brand new technologies to take 10, 15 years to mature. We've seen that over the last 10 years. So there's been a gradual, steady maturing of the technology and learning. And I think what's different in the last year or so, we've seen this sort of catch up when it comes to regulation and, really creating those guardrails that are so very important for anything to really scale.
Yes, and normally regulation goes a lot slower than actually the tech, right, and innovation. But in simple terms, how does EY implement blockchain or smart contracts into the solutions that you're providing?
Yeah, so the products that we build, we've sort of focused on a couple of different areas. We, on the one hand, part of our portfolio is really about helping our clients as they're running and building their business. So we've got an analytics, we've got analyzer that is really allowing our clients to be able to verify on-chain, off-chain data. Incredibly important when you're doing audits. We need that technology. We need that capability. It's also a big part of risk management and being able to give tooling to our clients to help them with those processes. We have also invested in a similar way around building out the capabilities to really have secure contract building. And we've been doing that for many years now. We've been running and we've had our COE for smart contract review, and we've built up a tremendous library now of test cases and experience in doing that. And so that tooling and I think that product has really matured, and we've been able to embed AI in it now at a really critical point. Why? Because the process of review, the process of testing, we thought it was so important to be able to speed it up and increase the efficiency of it. We needed broader test casing. We need to be able to help people to really thoroughly and robustly be testing these smart contracts before they get deployed. So all of that is really supporting our clients. And then on the other part of our product portfolio is really around creating the tooling and the APIs needed to support both the traceability and the tracking of assets over their life cycle. And that's tracking, tracing, transfer, notarizing, all of those things that you might want to do with the assets, as well as contract management. So being able to now sort of program those terms and conditions for a contract, for a B2B contract on, and manage that contract on a public blockchain. And so that's really the full breadth of everything that we're doing within our portfolio today.
Amazing. Enabling new solutions that are driven by blockchain and AI, and also that have to come up with the right way of approaching governance, right? And normally governance structures are a little bit slower, as we were saying, but also they are aiming to prevent issues such, for example, as greenwashing in decentralized supply chains. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage to do that, given your work on sustainability and blockchain enables transparency that we were talking about?
So I think blockchain technology plays an incredibly important role. So it's not just in decarbonization. I would say there's quite a lot of the ESG related use cases that are really new. It's the first time that enterprises are challenged with the idea that they need to be able to provide data. That data has to be accessed by multiple stakeholders. And it's super important that we know the authenticity of it, that we're able to see, has it been changed? Where did it come from? Whose data was it? So it's a very unique data problem, because all of the other data problems that an enterprise manages, they're managing data within their firewall. They're managing data within their enterprise. And this problem is one where it's really important that that stays with integrity, but is allowed out into the ecosystem. And that's where blockchain plays a really incredibly important role. So the ability to tokenize a product passport with that information and allow it then to flow through the supply chain, maybe with your product over time, a really good use case in addition to carbonization, and being able to follow your carbon emissions for a product. It can also be the battery passport. Mm-hmm. That legislation is coming down the path, and we're seeing an increase in Much of this legislation that's been being developed, especially within Europe over the last few years, is coming to fruition now. So it's super important that enterprises have available to them easily implementable solutions, technology solutions to simplify it. Because otherwise the risk is that just the sheer volume of reporting is going to be overwhelming, right?
Absolutely.
So it's super important that technology is embedded with it.
Is that you think that's one of the main challenges, or are there more key challenges that you have to balance for interoperability and privacy and decentralization when using these blockchain systems?
Yeah, it's a very broad question. I think that you can divide the problems into the piece parts, and it's as relevant in this space as it would be for many other technologies. What do I mean by that? There's solving the technical problem. So how do you design it and architect it in the most efficient and effective way? There's the process of it. How do enterprises build the processes around this? This is very often new processes that require a thoughtful sort of framework to be able to build it into your, especially if you've got compliance and regulatory reporting requirements. Like, you have to build out that process. You need the skills in-house. You've got to build those skills. And, and that talent extends beyond just the users and the application. And so I think beyond it, you need the clarity. Where's the regulation going? When is it needed? What is it? What does it mean? So there are lots and lots of layers, and each one of them has got a tremendous number of people focused at solving those problems. And over time, that comes together, and that's where you see this maturing, and then you see the market moving. And we've seen now, if you take the case of decarbonization, that's been a process over several years now that's maturing for companies to be prepared, to be ready to start to implement what they need for carbon reporting. And so it's a multi-year sort of progression towards a goal.
So taking back some of these elements that you are addressing, Claire, in what ways should organizations rethink data quality metrics to establish this immutable trust in ESG reporting, going into a very specific case and going also beyond tokenization?
Yeah. So I think if you take the case of carbon emissions and the traceability of carbon emissions, or carbon accounting is actually what you're trying to do. I think it's super important with any one of these use cases that you really take time to make sure that you framed out exactly what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve. And very often when it comes to carbon emissions, it's usually the reporting of our carbon emissions.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have, therefore, a level of agreement. You need to come to a level of agreement, and that requires participation from governments, from both from the industries, from governance, and others, as to what that standardized approach should be. But if you can come to that agreement, the way that companies then need to structure it, and I think what's top of mind very often is it's a balancing act between making sure that I meet the requirements that I have to meet to remain compliant, but without overburdening our data and chief data officer in terms of the data that's being collected and the data that needs to be stored over time. And so the intent is to really break it down so that you're very, very crisp and clean in terms of the data that you would want to put onto the blockchain. It's really just the data that you need to follow that product.
Absolutely.
Right? There may be other data that, as a as an enterprise, as a company, you need. You need it as part of your operations. You need it for other decision making. And that's perfectly valid. That's the same as you would apply to any other data that you're securing within your enterprise.
Yeah.
When it comes to the data you're then choosing to take, deploy, and tokenize onto the blockchain, it is very specifically the data that then needs to be transferred through the supply chain. It doesn't always say static. Obviously, I think people should know when you tokenize it, you can still update it. It may well need to be updated at some point in time to stay sort of relevant and correct for a particular product or a particular asset. But I think that we certainly think of it in terms of a product passport and tokenizing and making sure that that data is visible and available to the right stakeholders. And what that does is it sort of lightens the load a little bit. The technical underpinning technical kind of solution is exactly the same. It's the data, the metadata or the data components that are varied depending on who are those stakeholders, what is the purpose, again, of that passport, who needs to see it, how often, where, and that can live on. That can live on a public blockchain and not be required to be owned by each and every individual in the chain.
Absolutely. And you obviously have such a big experience, right? Doing all of these global leading operations. So in your view, what skills or roles are enterprises most lacking as they adopt these new technologies, including these digital product passports?
Yeah, so I think usually when you implement new technology, I've been in technology now for 25 years, so I've done a lot of enterprise technology over my career, and especially sort of big business transformation type engagements. And I think the obvious one that people always think of is that, well, I need, you need blockchain developers. I need developers who can build on the blockchain. I think that's true. The market demand at the moment is outstripping supply, and so there's lots of new people coming in from that perspective. But I always say take a step back. When you're really implementing and when you're really thinking about embracing this as an extension of your enterprise as you run it today, and you really want to make use of some of these new decentralized use cases, you also need to educate the rest of your organization. So it touches on everybody. It touches on your procurement. It touches on your finance team, your treasury team. It touches on your legal team. And so the education has to reach a lot further within the organization. And I think maybe people acknowledge at first. So it's super important that, if you're an enterprise that's got, a chief risk officer, a chief compliance officer, integrating this new functionality, this new business process into the frameworks that you've built out over many years is a piece of work that's absolutely worthwhile and I would say almost essential to you running this. It's not something that sits to the side of your enterprise. It's integrated with all the different pockets that you have within your business, in your industry. And so those are the skills that are needed. And we're so early right now. That's what's exciting, is that we're right at the early stages of a very nascent technology, which means if you're coming out of college right now, you can pick any of those areas and start to really uncover, well, what does the technology mean in that domain? And I think you're going to find that there's a demand for your skills out there.
Absolutely. It's about education and adoption at
Yep.
large, right? Starting within your own company and within the public at large and the markets as well. But that is a
Yeah.
challenge as well. How do you do it in your own company? It is so difficult. It's full of engineers
Yeah.
and developers and jargon, and it's a complex technology. So how do you do it?
It is. But, I mean, we do some things, I think, the way that anyone else would do. We've got courses and we do CPE and we do training. We've had it, I mean, we're very fortunate in that we organize ourselves as well. We're globally organized, which enables us to enable all the different parts of our organization, which is very large. And I would also say as well, we've been at the journey a long time. So we've got, a huge capability in this space and in services, but that's because we've been building it over several years now. And so we're very fortunate from that point of view. But, in some ways we do it in many of the other ways that you teach new skills within an organization. I'm pretty sure that there's many enterprises right now that are doing the exact same things with AI. We're living at a point of time where there are some absolutely foundationally groundbreaking technologies that are becoming available for enterprises to transform at the same time. And so I do think that we're living in a period where most large enterprises are embedding technology in so many people's roles that I think the appetite and the understanding of how critical it is to help people learn these skills, I think is familiar. And so blockchain in some ways is no different. When we deliver our solutions as a blockchain solution, we deliver it as an API. It's the same as any other API SaaS solution that you're integrating into your landscape. So it's not really so far outside of other technologies that you're building in. So it's delivered in such a way today that I don't know that there are many people that need to go out there and start building their own network or start building their own solutions. It's more mature.
Yes, absolutely.
Today.
There are plenty of options. And
Absolutely.
talking about the future, where do you see the next frontier, such as a decentralized digital identity or public goods infrastructure or financial inclusion
Yeah.
in the best case
So,
scenario?
if I may, I'll start at the beginning because I think it's super important to see sort of where we're evolving to. We've always had this sort of underlying kind of premise or belief, and our belief has always been that, in a sense, public blockchain is going to become the sort of the ERP of sort of between enterprises. Now, that's a very big statement. Where are we today? Well, the first use case was without a doubt cryptocurrency, right? You had your Bitcoin, you have the whole evolution of DeFi. It's continuing to evolve, but it's incredibly established today. I don't think anyone can argue that it's there and it's real, and digital assets is very much a part of the financial services sector. And that's a fact, and that's continuing to evolve very, very rapidly. And we can see the impact of some of the most recent sort of legislation, especially here in the United States, where I'm sitting today. With the Clarity Act, with the Genius Act, you see these huge step changes with institutions and institutional investors, banks, a lot of interest in getting involved. Much of that interest right now is stablecoins. Well, stablecoins paves the way for payments, and payments really touches on all sectors. It touches on all industries. And you see a segue in there for a tremendous amount of change and a great value proposition in driving efficiencies and the way enterprises think about running their businesses today. So I do think that payments is probably the next big one. I think following that, you can see then that this evolution of sort of supply chain, ESG, decarbonization, and eventually what we're going to see is the movement of assets and the agreements that go with it and the sort of the commercialization of that coming together as one. I mean, that's really what is so powerful with the proposition of a decentralized network, and if you're building in such a way that you can have these integrated processes, and so incredibly automated, incredibly well functioning. But that's, it's going to be an evolution towards it, exactly as we've seen now. And so you see pockets now where enterprises are already using it for traceability, or they're using it for notarization, because for their business, what matters is that they're able to put their quality stamp on it, and people need to be able to know where it originated, why, who wrote it, who it belongs to. You're already seeing those use cases. And so what we'll see over time is that some of these will converge and become more powerful, and it'll become a more sort of embedded and entwined with our everyday.
Yes. I think that most technologies that get very useful and used are those ones that seem so obvious. Those ones like,
Absolutely.
why didn't we have these before? Right.
Yeah.
Why didn't it happen?
Because it's solving a problem it's solving a problem in a way that it makes life easier. But it's very telling now that we see. I mean, one of the big changes, you can start to see that this evolution of brand names, consumer names, really thinking about how they integrate, cryptocurrencies into their everyday payments. Gucci, I think, was a really recent one as well.
Yes.
Adding several. So I think that it's there and it's available, and I think we'll see it becoming part of our lives in a very similar way to AI, which is sort of front of mind for so many people.
Exciting times. Thank you, Claire.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, really, for joining us today and having this conversation with CCN.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Lorena. It really has. Thank you.
We'll be in touch. Thank you. That was Clare Adelgren from EY, and I'm Lorena Nessi for CCN. Thank you, and see you later.